Upon reaching retirement age, most people will find themselves having saved somewhere between $0 and $1 million. The majority of people will fall on this end of the spectrum, while a much smaller minority will end up on this end. And the question is, with these amounts, what does retirement actually look like? I mean, how much money do you need to be struggling in retirement, living modestly, and even thriving? Well, in this video, we're going to figure out the answer to that question and walk through what retirement looks like with $0 saved and living on Social Security alone, all the way up to having $1.46 million, which is what most experts say you need in order to retire comfortably, and everything in between. And I hope that this video paints a picture on what retirement looks like with these different amounts saved, and hopefully, if you're still in your planning phase, this video inspires you to take your retirement planning more seriously so you have enough to live comfortably. And so before we begin, in order to make sure this video has some structure, we need to standardize who a retired person is. And in order to do that, we need to make some assumptions. And let me just say, these are going to be some pretty big assumptions. Firstly, they're an individual person, 65 years old. They own their home and they own their car. They are debt-free. They receive $22,800 a year in Social Security after taxes and have their health care covered through Medicare, paying $4,000 a year. Now, I know that not everybody is in this scenario, but in order to make this video have a flow, this is going to be our retirement guinea pig. And all that's going to change between each scenario, the only variable, is how much money they save for retirement and how that amount affects their life. And so now that we have established who our retiree is, the next thing that we need to discuss is how much income can they generate from their savings. And this is a very important question, because if you have $1 million saved, how much of that can you withdraw every year so you don't run out of money before you die? Well, luckily there's actually a very simple rule of thumb for this, and it's called the 4% rule, which says that you can safely withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year, and your money should last about 30 years. So if you have $100,000 saved, you can safely withdraw $4,000 a year. Or if you have $1 million saved, you can safely withdraw $40,000 a year. Now, of course, the 4% rule isn't a perfect science, but it's based on past market performance, and nobody can predict the future. But this is one of the most widely used retirement tools when it comes to planning. And for the sake of simplicity and consistency, we're going to use it throughout this video. And so now let's walk through every single different scenario and see what retirement looks like, starting with absolutely nothing saved. So our journey begins with the person who is the least prepared for retirement. They have no retirement accounts, no investments, just time and a Social Security check. So let's start off by taking a look at their income. Given that they have $0 invested, their only source of income is $22,800 a year, or $1,900 a month from Social Security. But let's also factor in Medicare, which brings our actual income to $1,550 a month, which is better than nothing, and thank God we have a Social Security system. But that is not enough money to live off of, even making the assumptions that they have a paid-off car, home, and are debt-free. You see, Social Security was never meant to entirely fund a person's retirement, but the idea of Social Security was that it was just one leg of a three-legged stool, with the second leg being a pension or 401k plan, and the third being personal savings. Making Social Security your entire retirement plan is setting yourself up for an extremely limited and extremely stressful retirement. And so let's take a look at what the lifestyle looks like on someone that is living solely on Social Security. When you're living off this amount, Every dollar has to be carefully planned, and you have no margin for error. At this level, you're cooking every single meal at home, keeping your thermostat at 78 in the summer, and thinking twice before replacing anything, from shoes to a microwave. And even though Medicare should cover your health costs, there are still many surprise expenses that could come up. If your car breaks or your roof leaks, you're in trouble and most likely don't have the money to cover it. Your entertainment is limited to what's free or what's nearly free. You could take walks, watch Jeopardy, or go to the library, but can't really afford to travel or take vacations. And in addition, because you have no flexibility in your budget, you can't help your grandkids, afford to give, or build a life that feels free. More than likely, living off $1,550 a month is not going to be possible, and you're going to have to find a part-time job for as long as you are physically able to work. And so the next question is, how do people get here? How do you retire with nothing? Well, it's easy to say that it's a result of laziness and irresponsibility. And sometimes it is, but for many people, it is simply because of the hand they were dealt in life. They might have worked low-wage jobs their entire career, raised kids on a single income, had medical bills, debt, or divorce that made them start over, or maybe had no access to a financial education. Millions of Americans reach retirement age with having absolutely nothing saved. And as we've uncovered, that is a very scary reality. And so if there's anything that I want you to take away so far in this video, it's that you can't rely on Social Security as your retirement plan. Social Security will help you, but it's important to have something else to fall back on because you need it in order to retire comfortably. And so now, let's see what retirement looks like with having a little bit saved. $100,000. Now, in most circumstances, $100,000 is a lot of money, but when you're trying to stretch it over 25 to 30 years for your retirement, $100,000 is not as much as you might think. And so let's take a look at what your income looks like with $100,000 saved. Just like before, you have $1,550 from Social Security after taxes and Medicare. Using the 4% rule, you can safely withdraw $4,000 a year, or $333 a month, meaning you have $1,883 a month to spend. And I'm not trying to sound extremely pessimistic and don't kill the messenger, but in our expensive country, that is still not a lot of money. You might not be barely surviving, but you still don't have enough to really enjoy your retirement. At this level, you might have enough money to eat out every now and then, or be able to replace stuff every now and then. But you still have to carefully budget every single dollar because there is still no room for error. At this level, traveling and helping the family is still out of question. And you still don't have enough to have peace of mind for surprises in life. If you need a new car or a surprise expense comes up, you're still not ready for it. And sadly at this stage, you still probably have to work part-time to make a little bit more money so you can enjoy life a bit more. And so the question is, how do people get here? $100,000 is obviously better than nothing, but when you have to stretch it over 25 to 30 years, it's not as much money as you might think. And at this level, people get here because they just did the minimum 401k match. They might have received an inheritance that bailed them out, or they started preparing very late in life. I recently made this video that goes through every decade of life and talks about how much money that you need to set aside in order to retire a millionaire. And the main lesson of that video was the earlier you start, the easier it is. And the reason is because your money has more time to compound, and compound interest will do all the heavy lifting for you. For example, with a goal to reach $1.46 million, a 29-year-old who aggressively saved $130,000 would only contribute 9% and have 91% come from interest, whereas a 50-year-old starting from scratch would need to contribute 60%, while 40% would come from interest. The later you start, the harder it is to build something substantial, which is why people retire with only $100,000 saved. And so now let's move on to when things start to become more comfortable, and that's at $500,000. Now, this is the level where retirement starts to feel different. With $500,000 saved, you're no longer just scraping by, but you're starting to enter retirement with options and breathing room. And so let's break down the income. Just like before, you have $1,550 a month from Social Security, and using the 4% rule, you can safely withdraw $20,000 a year, or $1,667 a month, meaning you have an income of $3,217 a month. Now, let me just stop right here and say that going from $100,000 to $500,000 is a very big jump, and most people will find themselves between these two numbers. And so let's go through every $100,000 increments and see how much income you get. With $200,000, you'd have a total of $2,217 a month. With $300,000, that's $2,550 a month. And with $400,000, that's $2,883 a month. And so as we see, every $100,000 meaningfully improves your life, but back to $500,000 and $3,217 a month. At this level, you can finally breathe financially. You have enough money to cover your needs, enjoy some wants, and can even absorb a few surprises without going into panic mode. You still have to be careful, but you're no longer in survival mode. You can afford modest travel, give gifts during the holidays, and actually enjoy the freedom that retirement is supposed to bring. Having $500,000 might not mean you're rich, but it means that you can retire with dignity, flexibility, and peace of mind. And just like the other points, how do people reach this point? How do people get $500,000? Well, unlike the previous levels, getting here requires a lot more intentionality. Maybe they started regularly contributing to retirement accounts in their 30s or 40s, stayed out of major debt, and were consistent. You don't need a career with a high income to reach this point, but you simply need a plan and discipline to follow through with that plan. And as we've uncovered so far in this video, the difference between having a plan and not having a plan makes all the difference. And so now let's take an even bigger jump and move on to $1 million. Now, this is the level that many people consider the holy grail of retirement. We have reached
$1 million.
And rightfully so. And so let's break down the income to see what life looks like at this level. Again, you have Social Security, and 4% of $1 million is $40,000 a year, or $3,333 a month, making your monthly total income $4,883. And of course, you'll have to pay some taxes on this. But with nearly $5,000 a month, although you can't live too extravagantly, you can live very comfortably. You can travel occasionally, enjoy the little things in life, handle unexpected expenses, finally finish your basement, treat your loved ones, and maybe even move to a warm, sunny climate. You have flexibility, peace of mind, and control over your time. This is the level of retirement that many people dream of. And so again, how do people reach this point? Well, the truth is, people that reach this point don't just stumble into it, but it comes from decades of consistency. More than likely, they started saving in their 20s, became financially literate, maxed out their retirement accounts, lived modestly, and stayed out of high-interest debt. And it's important to note that retiring with $1 million does not require a career that has a high income, but it simply requires a plan, living below your means, and staying the course. And so if there's any lesson that I want you to take away from this level, it is that wealth isn't built overnight. It is built quietly over decades. The earlier you start, the easier it is to retire a millionaire, to retire with dignity and flexibility. And so now, let's take one more big jump to what many financial experts say is exactly how much you need to retire comfortably, and that is $1.46 million. For most people, anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million means a comfortable retirement, especially when you have a paid-off home and car. However, many financial experts suggest that $1.46 million is the amount needed to have a comfortable retirement. And so one final time, let's break this down. 4% of $1.46 million means that you'd have $58,400 a year, or $4,867 a month, with a combined total of $6,417 a month. Even with a mortgage and a car payment, that is a lot of money. That is more money than many people are making while having a full-time job. But at this level, you are extremely secure financially. You can take multiple vacations a year, eat out whenever you want, help your family without hesitation, become a snowbird, give generously, and pursue whatever passion you want. And you don't really have any financial pressure at all, as you can weather out pretty much any storm. Whether that's getting major work done to your home, a new car, or better care as you enter late retirement. This is a thriving retirement. And so one final time, how do people reach this point? Well, just like $1 million, reaching this point doesn't happen by accident. But more than likely, you started preparing in your 20s, aggressively invested in your early years, lived modestly, and let compound interest do its job. And just like before, getting here doesn't always require a high income, but it only requires that you create a plan early on, stay focused, and trust the process. And so to finish this video, I want to ask you one question. What will your retirement look like? If you clicked on this video and made it this far into the video, that means that one day you plan on retiring, and my guess is that you hope to retire comfortably, where you're able to do more of what you want and don't have to stress out about money all the time. And the truth is, you deserve to retire comfortably because most of life is just struggling and working extremely hard. And we should all reach a point where we can finally rest and enjoy life. However, the truth is, in the world that we live in, reaching that point is not a given. And as we've uncovered in this video, making Social Security your entire plan will not allow you to have a comfortable retirement and make the final phase of your life all about survival. And so if you want to retire comfortably, the truth is, it is all on you. It is all on you to make the plan, to take the steps, to build the habits, and to make the decisions that your future self will thank you for. Because while retirement might seem far today, it's going to come a lot quicker than you might think. And every small step that you take today is going to bring you closer to a future that you deserve. And with that, muchas gracias. Que tengan un buen día. Nos vemos, chicos.